The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, episode 118.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Make it so. Surrender is not an option.
Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is James Kirk.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We would have helped you get home if you had asked. That's who Starfleet is.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Discovery episode, Into the Forest I Go, the fall finale for the first season. Joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Stika. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very good, thanks. And Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, if you have not yet done so, please subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the SQPN YouTube channel, where you should also hit the bell to get notifications of new episodes. So, as I mentioned, today we're talking about a first season Discovery episode. We're still making our way through those. But I just want to let you know, coming up, October 15th, the new season of Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, is coming. And when it drops, we'll be talking about it every week. Each new episode we'll be talking about, so that following Monday, you can hear us talk about the most recent episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 3. So you have that to look forward to. And so if you have no other Star Trek fans who are not yet subscribers to the Secrets of Star Trek, let them know. This is the time. Get in now. Don't miss any. So, but we're talking about Into the Forest I Go, which, as I said, was the end of the first half of the first season of Discovery. And this is the point after this at which Discovery got good.
Yeah.
Ish.
Ish. I mean, it has its highs and lows this first half of the first season, but it really hits its stride in the second half of the first season.
Well, and this is, we had discussed this way back when we just did kind of the quick overviews of season 1 of Discovery. But there was such turmoil in the first season Discovery. We had Brian Fuller, the famous director, producer,
right,
fired. And that's when Kurtzman came in. And this was my speculation, and I know I'm not alone in this, is the first half of the first season was Brian Fuller. The second half of the first season was when Kurtzman came in and changed everything.
A very different feel.
And that's why the two halves of the seasons are so dramatic. And I don't remember if they had originally planned to have the mid-season break like they did. Because they had, if I remember right,
a month and a half.
Month and a half, yeah. So there was a significant period between the first half and the second half, which we didn't see with season 2.
Right. Well, and because you had Michelle Yeoh come back, which was a brilliant idea, and you lost Jason Isaacs eventually, but that's more to the end of the first season. Yep. I don't think I like Jason Isaacs in this, so that's not I don't think necessarily commentary on him. I think one of the things that if it was Brian Fuller's idea, which was a good one, was the whole Voq-Tyler thing. I think that was great. So
I wonder how much of a difference it made in terms of overall plot. I'm sure that the new showrunner changed things, and definitely the direction was different in season 2. But I don't know, and I know he changed things on the small level in the second half of season 1, or at least once he arrived. But in terms of the major plot beats, I don't know that it was different, because you had always had the same actor playing Voq and Ash Tyler.
Yes.
Right.
And that was right there in the first half of the first season. So I think that was originally, that reveal was originally planned.
Well, that's what I mean. I think that was good, that Fuller came up with that. Yeah.
Okay. Also, I think we were always headed to the mirror universe.
Right.
Yes.
Because they've been setting up, since they first introduced Captain Lorca, they've been making a deal about his eyes and needing to take those eye drops. And they've always had he's got this secret torture lab and stuff like that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I do agree with that. Absolutely. It's just, there's a tone to the second half of the first season that is so dramatically different. And, it's things that commentators notice that it is a little more respectful to canon. Again, there's still arguments. People are still arguing about whether or not Discovery is canon, but there's a little more respectfulness to canon in the second half than there was in the first half.
Yeah.
Little bit.
Mm-hmm. There's a difference. There's definitely a difference. So let's talk about this episode, Into the Forest I Go. The episode title comes from a quote from the naturalist John Muir. The full quote is, "And into the forest I go to lose my mind and find my soul." So the writers of the episode say they chose it because they believed it especially reflected Michael Burnham's journey over the past 8 episodes. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I follow, but that's okay. It's more Stamets, if anything, because Stamets is the one who loses his mind.
Yeah,
and finds his soul
and goes into a mycological forest.
That's right. Yes. So the episode starts with Admiral Terrell, I was going to say Spockish, the Vulcan
Admiral dude.
Admiral. He's ordering Discovery to return to the starbase from Pavo because the Klingon sarcophagus ship is on the way, and Discovery is too vulnerable. But Lorca doesn't want to leave. He ostensibly because the peaceful Pavans will be annihilated. Why does Lorca really want to stay? Because of what he eventually does with Discovery's spore drive?
I don't think he has that plan yet.
Yeah.
And he does come across, I mean, given what we know about him as viewers who've seen the full first season, he's behaving awfully Starfleet here. Yeah. I mean, he seems genuinely concerned about the Pavans being wiped out by the Klingons. I mean, I picked up on that right away at the beginning of the episode. And then he does a typical Starfleet thing of, okay, let's bend the rules and comply with the orders to go to Starbase 46, but the second the Klingon ship gets here, we're going to warp back.
Yep. Right.
And I need you, Mr. Stamets, to have some trouble with your spore drive interfaces, so go down to sickbay and get checked out, so we'll have a paper trail on that. And he makes the point when everyone's freaking out on the bridge. By the way, I like how he refers to, now that we've heard from the panicked Vulcan Admiral,
yes,
which is kind of a nice portrayal of Vulcan panic. But after everyone's freaking out about, we're really going to Starbase 46, he's like, come on, folks, I have no intention of reaching our destination. Here's what we're going to do. But if you're going to break an order, it's a sound policy not to look like you're breaking an order.
It's the classic, we'll get there as quick as we can, Admiral, but boy, we can't push the warp drive past warp 5. It's just, it's going to take, there's too much damage,
Is there static on this line? I can't hear you clearly.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get there as soon as we can in a week, or 3 days it was.
So in the meantime, he assigns Saru and Burnham to come up with a plan to break the Klingon cloaking device, to get through it. And so they do, of course, because it's Star Trek and you always succeed in these things. And so they're going to exploit minute imperfections in the cloaking device. And there's all sorts of technobabble about how that's going to happen.
The net effect is they got to beam over and plant a couple of transmitters on the ship to let them exploit those imperfections.
But because it would take days under normal circumstances for enough data to come through, instead they're going to come up with a way for the ship to accelerate that by making 133 micro spore jumps to map the Klingon cloak in 4 minutes instead of 4 days.
Right. So they're going to jump all around the ship of the dead from multiple angles so they can get readings on those transmitters from multiple angles.
It's going to be like Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. Boop, 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 all around them. So, meanwhile, Lorca, his part of his plan to, like you said, to delay, to have a reasonable reason for not using the spore drive to go back to Starbase 46 is, Stamets, go get your interfaces inspected in sickbay because something's wrong. And Stamets is like, wait a minute, I don't want Dr. Culber, to look at, to examine me. Well, that's because Culber has figured out that something is changing in Stamets' brain because of he's the interface for the spore drive. And that's going to be a big deal coming up. So when Lorca proposes to Stamets doing these 133 jumps, because Stamets is like, I'll do one more jump. That's it. And then I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And Lorca's like, no, I need you to do 133, and here's why. And he shows a map to Stamets that includes parallel universes connected to the mycelial network. And the more jumps they make, the more they map the network and then make it possible to jump to a parallel universe. What do you know? That could be very convenient for somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he sells it to Stamets on the grounds that you're an explorer. You could have stayed in a lab somewhere, but you came out here. And so once we win this war, we can just keep going with the exploration and explore these parallel universes.
Right.
And then they're going to have a boarding party. It has to beam over surreptitiously to the Klingon ship and place the sensors. Lorca at first refuses to let Burnham go. And he doesn't have a real good reason. And she gives him this argument that convinces him that she's the most qualified, which she is, of course. And I'm thinking, it's explained by, again, what we learn about the relationship between the mirror Burnham and Lorca in the other universe and why he needs her in the other universe, which explains why he pulled her off the prison shuttle in the first place. He needs this Burnham for his future plans. So, but he has to let her go because he got to get to the other universe for it to work, for her to be valuable in his plan anyway. So the Klingon ship shows up, and just before as they drop shields and raise the cloak, they take their sweet time beaming over.
Oh, I know.
Oh, he drives me crazy. Be standing on the pad and hit the button.
Yeah, in the real world, it'd be like, okay, we've got this 5-second window to beam over. We're going to make sure we're ready to go so that they just have to hit the go button.
No,
but of course, this is Star Trek, so they got all the time in the world. They could go have lunch and then get on the transporter pad as the ship is cloaking.
Right.
I do like how they crouch down to make themselves smaller targets and have their weapons already in their hands raised, ready to fire when they beam over, in case they beam into a spot where there are people.
Finally, somebody's ready to beam into a dangerous situation. So they beam aboard. They place the first sensor. It goes according to plan, because of course it does. Perhaps blinking lights and beeps aren't the best idea for a secret sensor.
Big noticeable connection to USS Discovery established.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well have the AOL like boop boop. You've got new mail.
What this really reminded me of, and then after they get it set up and it establishes the connection to Discovery, it's like awaiting second probe.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, we're using Alexa to set up our home network for the smart home lights here.
That's right. And then it continues to beep and blink. Beep, beep,
yep.
beep.
Yeah.
Anyway, as they're making their way through, they've got devices to mask their human life signs, which is, again, a nice little detail that it was always a problem before. But they say, there's another human on board. We need to stop and check it out because there must be another human prisoner. They find it's Admiral Cornwell, who's still in that room where she was thrown by L'Rell. And L'Rell's in there with all the dead, dismembered Klingons of L'Rell's posse. And Tyler freezes up upon seeing L'Rell and starts having this post-traumatic vision of being tortured by her. Or as far as we know, it's torture. Later on, we'll find out it's surgery.
Well, it's sort of torture surgery. Why didn't you just give him an anesthetic?
Yeah, exactly. It's
because they're Klingons, and they're Klingons. They don't do that.
Yeah. What's anesthetic? So that leaves it up to Burnham to have to stun L'Rell, and he goes into shock. So it's sort of an effective portrayal of traumatic stress and shock. And Cornwell luckily she's a psychiatrist, and so she recognizes shock, and she's also been disabled. She can't move her legs, so she's got a spinal injury of some sort, so she can't stand, can't help herself. But Burnham, she sends Burnham like, look, you have to go set the sensor, come back, and then we'll all beam off together. He's no good to you right now, so go do it. So Burnham goes to the bridge.
I like Cornwell's acting and scripting in this scene, because as soon as Burnham wakes her up, she's got to give her a hypo spray even to wake her up.
Right.
And Ash is freaking out, and Burnham has to get him over to the wall after she stuns L'Rell.
Yep.
She has to get Ash, help him over to the wall where Cornwell is. And Cornwell immediately, and she's saying, I'm Specialist Michael Burnham, and she says, state your mission, Specialist.
Right.
And that's a very, I really like that. That's very efficient. It's very military. There's obviously a reason that Burnham is here on the Klingon ship. So state your mission, Specialist.
Right.
And it's like, we've got to plant these things. Okay. And well, you're going to have to go do that by yourself because I've treated people with post-traumatic stress disorder, and he's not going to be a help to you anytime soon.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Very effective scene. And is at this point where Burnham calls Discovery and lets Lorca know that Cornwell is alive, which could be very bad for Lorca if she starts talking to other people. So you could tell he's a little like, oh, she is.
Of course, you do have the typical Star Trek here, where the first probe gets put in some storage room that no one ever enters into, like ever, and put behind boxes. The other one has to be right in the corner of the bridge where everybody can see it.
Right. So she gets there somehow and places the second sensor, turns it on, and Discovery starts its jumping about like a jumping bean. And Stamets, meanwhile, is succumbing to the effects of the jumps. So you can tell it's taking a toll on him, and Culber is worried, and so is Tilly. Cole wants to warp away. The Klingon leader. Yeah. He wants to warp away because he realizes Discovery's jumps mean they're up to something. And by the way, thankfully, at this point, Burnham has opened her communicator, and the Universal Translator is translating for us, so we don't have to listen to Klingon and read it on the screen. We can actually hear what they're saying. So he wants to jump away because they're obviously Discovery's doing something. And so Burnham says, which I would have hoped that Lorca and the others would have thought of. Like, do you think the Klingons just going to stand there for 4 minutes while you jump around them like a crazy rabbit? But
yeah, they should be like firing an occasional low power laser beam, every fifth jump or something to make it seem like it's a kind of attack.
Right. Right. So Burnham decides to distract them. She starts shooting, then says, I want to talk to Cole. She's, trying to delay him. So she accuses Cole of having no honor, says she was the one who killed Takuvma, and she knows how to manipulate Cole and get his sense of honor riled up.
Well, it helps too that the first person she shoots is the helmsman.
Yes, it's difficult.
Go to warp. Oh, there's nobody there anymore. Never mind.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
I did like, and this is nice improvising on Burnham's part. To keep the plan going. I have at this point in my notes lost track of taking notes because this actually got interesting enough. I forgot to take notes over part of this, and
that's good.
So that's a good sign.
Exactly.
So it's true. Sometimes I have to stop and backtrack when I'm doing this because I'm supposed to be taking notes. Tyler comes out of his shock just in time to defend himself and Cornwell from some Klingons who show up in the room. So he's coming out of it. Back on the bridge, Burnham challenges Cole to a duel. So we have knife fight, which she would totally lose right away because, let's be honest, Cole is obviously bigger, stronger, and a Klingon who walks around with two knives on him. I mean, come on.
But she's Vulcan trained, so she knows all the martial arts ever made. So she's good.
Yes. At this point, in the middle of this, L'Rell wakes up. After cracking through the cloak with the algorithm, Tyler and Cornwell are beamed out first, but L'Rell jumps into the transport beam, which is incredibly dangerous, as Kirk told Jillian back in Voyage Home. And then Burnham manages to beam off the Klingon ship in mid-fight. In fact, in mid-air, they beam her off. Yeah. She jumps over the railing.
Falling from one level to another on the bridge.
After she grabs Georgia's combat or little badge, not combat, just her little badge.
Yeah. And then now that they can see the ship of the dead through the cloak, Lorca orders them to destroy it. So ship of the dead is dead.
Yeah, that's actually what I have. Ship of dead in my notes. And then a note that we're only 2/3 of the way through the episode.
Right.
So we've had the major climax. We're going to have a really long anticlimax.
Right. So Lorca, at this point, as I put in my notes, seems nonplussed that Cornwell was rescued. But she's sent off by emergency ambulance shuttle to the starbase ahead of Discovery. for reasons. Why not just?
Well, they
bring
sent her to a
with the spore
different
drive?
one. They sent her a different one because she went to Starbase 88, and Discovery was sent to 46.
Oh, okay.
So you can imagine 88 is like the military, the Army hospital.
Landstuhl Air Base in Ramstein, Germany.
She was sent to Starbase 4077.
Yeah,
yes,
there you go.
Where Hawkeye will treat her. So Burnham, meanwhile, goes to see Ash after the episode. They go to his quarters. She notes that he'd had a facade. She tells him, "You've had this facade all this time of that you were fine after being a prisoner, and now that facade has been stripped away." And I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting," because there's still a facade there that neither of them know about. The facade goes even deeper. So it's very interesting. The writers kind of tweaking at us, in plain sight, hiding things. He tells Burnham about L'Rell torturing him, but then he encouraged her affections for him and giving in to him. So interesting. Kids may listen to this. So I don't want to give too much away, but he is a survivor of a particular kind of abuse here that they're portraying him as.
Which they show us some of.
Yes, unfortunately.
A little too graphically, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, took 4 hours for them to film for some reason. Very weird. So, and they go into all kinds of other details in the story online, but unnecessary. I thought it was a little gratuitous, frankly. It didn't.
Agreed. Yeah. Fortunately, it goes by fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, meanwhile, Lorca manipulates Stamets into agreeing to one more jump. So this is where Stamets says, "I'll give you one more jump."
Actually, it's not. I that's what I thought was happening. So Vulcan Admiral dude tells Lorca that we're giving you the Legion of Honor medal, and then we cut to the shuttle bay for reasons that it's pretty looking out the shuttle bay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've got Stamets standing there, and Lorca comes up to him and says, "They're going to give me a medal for winning this battle, but it was all you, so I told him to give the medal to you."
Right.
And I thought, oh, how interesting. He's manipulating. Oh, and then he says, "Oh, and we're going to head back to Starbase 46 now. We'll do it by warp so you don't have to jump." And the Klingons are coming hot on for revenge and stuff after losing the Ship of the Dead. And I thought, oh, he's manipulating him into doing another jump. But he's actually not.
Mm-hmm.
Stamets says, "Oh, it's okay. If the ship is in danger, I'll do another jump." And he's like, "Okay, that's great. And then we can keep exploring after the war is over." And it's like, no, you don't understand. I mean, only one more jump ever.
Right.
So it's Stamets' decision to only ever do one more jump that forces the decision on Lorca.
Oh, okay.
Even though up to that point you could understand this as he's manipulating Stamets, he's actually not. It's when Stamets says, "I'm only ever going to do one more jump," that Lorca makes the decision.
It forces his hand. Because he's got the data he needs now, and maybe he would have wanted to wait a little bit before going from that point. But okay.
Like maybe win the war that he's been fighting or something.
Right.
Exactly.
And this is when Lorca says, "After this, it's a whole new chapter for Discovery." That's a little fourth wall breaking there.
There's a couple of fourth wall breaks in this last couple of scenes. I mean,
this should start to set things right.
That's right. Yeah. So Tyler, after having his dream memory of L'Rell, that of the explicit thing, he goes to her in the brig where she says, "Don't worry, I won't let them hurt you." So it's not like, for some reason he feels compelled to go to her, and she doesn't treat him like, "Oh, you're a former prisoner who's now come to gloat over my capture." She's like, "Oh no, soon we'll be back together." Like, she's kind of like, so clearly she thinks Vok is remembering.
She even says the word "soon" to him.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So
ambiguously.
Ambiguously. So, yeah, it's very interesting. So something has gone wrong in her and Vok's plan, obviously, that she doesn't realize yet. So as they're about to do the spore drive jump, Lorca accesses the controls on his chair, and we see him accessing the navigation controls. He enters a new navigation point, which, it's not the navigator, the helmsman doing it. It's himself. And he says, let's go home.
Yeah, and they jump, and Stamets cries out in pain, so something is going wrong with the jump. We don't know what. When they materialize, they're not at Starbase 46. They're surrounded by Klingon wreckage. They can't determine the known navigational beacons that should be out there, and so Saru says, we don't know where we are, and that's our cliffhanger.
Yes.
But the sequence went by so fast where Lorca punches information into his console on his chair that people didn't notice its significance. It's just like, oh, okay, he's doing something on his chair. He's maybe setting a destination, and then it all goes wrong.
Right.
And what people had to do was go back and walk through what he did frame by frame to realize the significance, because you get this list of all the jumps they've made recently, and then down at the bottom it says, like, command override, destination unknown.
Yeah.
And you realize at that point that's what he was doing. He was inputting a command override to the unknown destination, so Lorca knows where they are and nobody else does. But when you first watch this episode, you initially think he's just doing a normal thing.
Right.
And you don't realize he's brought them here.
Yeah. And I think that's so very well shot, to give great, credit for that scene where it's just so nonchalant, nobody on the bridge would have noticed. Obviously people watching didn't notice. No, they actually did such a good job of kind of hiding this.
Right.
But it was in plain sight. Hiding in plain sight, literally.
Yeah.
It was there. It's just and it kind of strikes me as you're talking, Jimmy, it's like this is something they could only do now with high definition that they could not have done the original Star Trek. TNG, DS9 would have been very difficult to do, to have that level of detail in the scene.
Yeah.
That if you just looked at it close enough on, big enough screen or zoomed in, go, oh, they just laid it right out there in front of you.
We're also in an environment now where people have this on their recorders or they're streaming it, and they can go back and watch it the way you couldn't on broadcast television.
Exactly.
And we've got the internet, so the fans who catch it can alert those who haven't caught it yet.
Yep.
Right. The YouTube channels with all of the 20 Easter eggs you missed in the latest episode of Discovery. Which, like Lorca is wearing a comm badge. Like, that's not so much an Easter egg, but we'll go with that. Anyway, and they're in the midst of this wreckage, and we get the fall finale coming up, in the next half of the season. They don't really tell us much, but we kind of hang there. And this was a very quick discussion for us. I mean, we're only about half an hour into our discussion.
Yeah.
This was an action-packed episode. We don't, go over all the different bits of action.
That's why it's short, because
exactly.
Action sequences and car chases mean nothing of significance is going to happen plot-wise until the action is over.
Right. And there's some good action. As much as I
stopped taking notes at one point.
As much as I mock Burnham fighting Cole in a knife fight, it's still a pretty good action sequence, I have to say. I mean, it's and there's some good repartee back and forth. But
it's interesting though how that this is probably one of the most enjoyable first season episodes of Discovery.
Yeah.
I mean, but it goes quick. I mean, I was surprised when I was watching it how quickly the episode went. It's like, oh, we're at the end of the episode already. Although, the last third does drag a little bit, comments about that. We get through the whole, exploding, ship of the dead is now dead, and we still got a third of the episode left. And that did drag a little bit, but not too bad.
It's like that classic Simpsons line from the Apu episode. Well, that seemed to wrap up much more quickly than usual, as Homer says. So, Father Cory, any final notes on this episode?
Just kind of one interesting thing is, they're when they come back to Pavo, they spore jump out of warp, which we don't see. We've never seen before, and I'm sure they didn't put any thought behind it. But it's just kind of funny. They're at warp, and also, now we're spore jump.
Oh, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jimmy?
Nope.
All right, so as we wrap things up, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Alan V, Colin M, Max T, Colleen M, and Jed D. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So that's it from us. What did you think of Into the Forest I Go, this end of the Discovery first season fall portion? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/Trek or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. We won't be coming back to the first season of Discovery until we've watched the third season of Discovery, as I mentioned at the top of the show. But I think that makes a nice little dividing line. We'll have a few other episodes of Star Trek in the other series before Discovery Season 3 begins. But next time, we'll be discussing the original series episode, Miri. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Well, thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Bonk, 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 bonk.
That's from Miri. And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. You stole my quote from that episode, Jimmy. No, just kidding. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, if you're planning on disobeying a direct order, best not to advertise the fact.